Okay, hello, hello, hello. I don't see it doesn't look like it's going. Hello. Okay, hey, how is everyone doing tonight? Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about a topic which is the pros and cons of multiracial categorization. So if there are any people coming to the stream, I'm going to give them a few minutes to come in and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to put a test hello in the chat in case anybody's there. I noticed that I put out a invite sometimes on my channel and people don't get it. They don't get notifications. But I like people to join the Discord because the Discord makes it a lot easier for people to get notifications. So if you haven't joined my Discord after the stream, I'll give people a link so that they can join the Discord. So I'll just give people a few more minutes and then I'll start. Yeah, for some reason it has two. So I'll just make it as if it's a video because I don't know if anyone got invites. But sometimes people say they don't get them. But so the pros and cons of multiracial categorization. So if I could just pull up the first if I could just pull up the first paragraph. Yeah, so it says that while multiracial adults share some things in common, they cannot be easily categorized. Their experiences and attitudes differ significantly depending on the races that make up their background and how the world sees them. For example, multiracial adults with a Black background, 69% of whom say most people would view them as Black or African American, have a set of experiences, attitude, and social interactions that are much more closely aligned with the Black community. So I want to talk about this paragraph because I think that this is probably the most significant reason why multiracial categorization has been really difficult. It isn't necessarily that people view themselves as aligned with the Black community, it's that they are really conditioned and programmed to be aligned to the Black community. In some ways, some people even feel forced to be aligned with the Black community, and they don't feel that they have the freedom to align themselves with any other community or have any other ideologies that are not in line with the Black community. So I feel like this particular study, it deserves a little bit more research because how do these people view themselves? Do they really view themselves as Black or African American? You have a significant portion of people saying, I'm mixed, but I consider myself Black, or I'm biracial, but I like to call myself Black. There's a lot of confusion as to what is acceptable for them to identify as. When we provide categorization, are we taking into account that we will now be giving people another identity and a freedom to express themselves more so the way they would like? Or are we going to have it so that people are still considered part of the Black community, whether they would like that affiliation or not? So I was looking at the top portion as well, multiracial adults. The word multiracial in itself, I feel like, is a problem. it doesn't really say anything. It doesn't make any sense. So for example, multiracial, white native, white Asian, black and native, white Asian and native, black native Asian and white and native, it gets confusing. Are these all the same groups? Are they all the same people? It's hard to tell, but yet we're lumping them all together to put them in a category. The previous category, of course, that a lot of people like to discuss is the mulatto category. That category was pretty much erased in 1920, 1930. Now it's reappearing in 2000, 2010, and we're combining it with a variety of other groups: white and native, white and Asian, black and native, and any mixture of any of those groups altogether. That makes it very difficult for the larger groups within those categories to feel that they have any distinct identity. Um, Multiracial really can't be considered any type of identity. What race are you? Multiracial. That's not really saying much. Does the person look primarily white? Do they look primarily black? Do they look primarily Asian? That's going to be the largest factor in what their race will be perceived as. Just to call them multiracial, that's not making any distinction. Multiple races isn't an ethnicity. Black is an ethnicity. Uh, Cherokee Indian is an ethnicity. Japanese is an ethnicity. What does multiracial mean? It doesn't mean really anything. So that's going to make it really hard for people who have that identity to now turn around and be considered anything significant. They're still going to be considered uh, kind of like the end note of another community. And that's exactly what they are fighting against in the first place. So, although it is good that we are now coming into defining multi ethnic people as distinct groups and not saying that they have to pick a side, we still need to be specific. We can't just lump them all together into multicolored, you know. Mixed is also a similar word, even though a lot of these words they start off meaning one thing and they end up meaning another. So for something like the word mix, it might have meant white, black, or white native mixtures. And then over time, it just meant any two ethnicities mixed, which causes a little bit of a divide between all of these groups because they're not necessarily the same. So I just want to pause for a moment and just give myself a few more minutes to check some things over, and I'll be right back. And to the next slide. And if anybody's here and they want to just drop a hello in the chat, that will be good. I'm doing my streaming different today, so I'm hoping that it's streaming properly. I don't know how this stream is going through, but I'm hoping that it's streaming properly. Give me a few moments. Take a peek at the next slide, right? A different pattern emerges. Okay, so I did want to take a little break, and I did just finish talking about how the black and white groups are perceived as simply being a part of the Black community and aligning themselves with that identity. And there really wasn't a lot of discussion from Black white people themselves as to how they perceive their identity. So, one thing I also want to talk about is when someone gives you information about a community, who is it that's giving you the information? I would have to check again and look, but who is it that's writing that Black and white people feel only connected to the Black community? Because sometimes I feel like these types of statements are made by other people with a bias or a vested interest in keeping Black white mixes aligned with the Black community, whether or not these mixtures themselves feel like they belong in that group. They may feel like they don't belong in that category, but they will always be pushed into that category. So, this is a different paragraph, and it says that a different pattern emerges among multiracial Asian adults. Biracial white and Asian adults feel more closely connected to whites than to Asians. Is this a surprise? Europe and Asia are connected, and I would argue a large portion of people in Europe with minute amounts of Asian ancestry view themselves as white. So this new categorization of people with small, minute admixture of Asian, placing them in the multiracial category with people who are white and black, I'm not quite sure how that um, impacts the numbers or even the identity of people who would be considered multiracial, because you would then have somebody who basically feels they're connected to white people and looks white, but you would be counting them as multiracial. And again, you've erased the category of mulatto and replaced it with the category of multiracial, but now with people who are white and Asian who feel white, who look white, people who are white and native who feel closest to white, who look white, and then you're placing people who are black, white in there, and then how does that affect and impact them? I would argue these groups should not be combined. That's my personal opinion. Other people may argue that they should be combined, but if you feel they should be combined, you can drop a comment in the video in the chat. But among biracial adults who are white and Native American, the largest group of multiracial adults, ties to their Native American heritage are often faint. Only 22% say they have a lot in common with people in the US who are American Indian, whereas 61% say they have a lot in common with whites. This sounds to me like this is giving, I'm white, but I have a small bit of mixture somewhere, so I can kind of claim POC. Okay, so I'm going to claim multiracial, even though I look white and I align myself with whiteness. I'm going to claim multiracial, and then I'll be a person of color, even though I look white and align myself with whiteness. And then I can say, but I'm not really white. Um, this, of course, could be an issue. It doesn't sound accurate, how they're measuring what the person's race is in the first place. So, race has a lot to do with forensics. So, someone passes away and they're a burn victim and you can't see what they look like. Um, you can't see what they look like, and now you have to get together dental records. Now you have to get together um, what their facial bone structure look like in order to determine their race. Is there going to be any significance when someone is a quarter Native American and 75% European, or a quarter Asian and 75% European? This is what you would really be looking at. You wouldn't be looking at whether someone felt that they weren't white, whether someone can identify that maybe back in their family line there was someone of another ethnicity. And we know that whiteness tended to be an exclusive. category for a variety of reasons, but we have to ask ourselves, should there perhaps be a different category for people who are, uh, mixed 25%, 15% with these other groups, primarily white, but look white, maybe align themselves with whiteness, but aren't 100% or 98% white? That would be my question. So I just want to say hello, ASM. How are you doing? It's a little quiet tonight. How are you? Long time no see. Hey, Duke, how's everything going? Good to see you. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the multiracial categorization topic. Um, so, I pretty much discussed how, when you're looking at the white Asian or white Native American mixes, you're not really getting anything different than people who align themselves with whiteness, people who look white, but simply genetically they may have a small admixture of Native American or Asian. And if, of course, if someone is half Asian or half, pure blooded Native American, they're going to have a different experience than a person perhaps who is uh, purely, German or Swedish or something like that. But just to say that somehow, with a quarter or, 10, 12% that it's going to be like that, that's a little bit different. But I also want to go to, I want to go to the next page in this categorization discussion. I believe it is I believe it's a chart. And the funny thing about this chart is that this chart had me asking some questions because this chart was talking about, are people multiracial based on their grandparents, based on their parents, or they describe themselves as two or more races. And I want to talk about the grandparents because there's a lot of people that I've noticed who are black white mixes who are now feeling like if you have a grandparent of a separate race that's not black, so for example, white or Native American or Asian, does that make you multiracial? And if you look at this chart, it would lead you to believe that that person would be multiracial. Okay. But I think we have to ask, will that be a true consideration? Because if you open up that door to where 75% is the mix, you're going to get a lot of people who don't necessarily, like, you're going to have a lot of people who are 25% black, and then you're going to have a lot of people who are 75% black. And that's going to create friction because not only was 75% never the number for black, white, mixed race, mulatto categories in the first place, um, there now are studies going around saying that the majority of African Americans are 75%, which are also a little janky, and a lot of people don't agree with that. So when you look at this type of study, I mean, is it accurate? Is it going to really be 75% black is good enough to be considered multiracial? That's how people are going to view this. Is it good enough? Could I be considered multiracial? And then you're going to have a feeling of encroachment by different groups. So that would be a question that people would need to really start looking at because I know in the past it was 5/8, which is about 63%. Okay. And you do have some biracials that are sometimes 51%, 55%, just based on different factors. But now, if you have, uh, okay, just one grandparent, that will change a lot of dynamics. And, you'll basically be getting into blood quantum. And a lot of people don't like blood quantum um, in mixed race spaces, which is understandable. So, it just becomes a question of how do you navigate from the blood quantum, the percentages, the grandparents, great grandparents, and other situations into, okay, this is an established identity where you can easily detect, is this person of this background? And clearly, if somebody has two parents of two separate backgrounds, people will readily accept that a person as being a mixed race person. But when you start getting into other combinations and configurations, you start having more questions. So I like what Duke said. He said, I think multiracial only means something if you're physically different from the larger group, and I agree with that. Um, there is a look that people call mix, and looks are kind of controversial as well. Some people don't like the looks discussion or the phenotype discussion, but I would argue that it's probably extremely important. They're all important in their own way, but the looks discussion, multiracial only means something if you're physically different from the larger group. The looks discussion is really one of, are you going to be like viewed as something distinctively different? So if you look white, you'll be viewed as white. If you quote unquote look black, you'll be viewed as black, right? If you look mixed, you'll be viewed as mixed. You have people that are viewed as mixed and they'll say, I'm not mixed. You have people who are viewed as black that'll say, I'm mixed. It becomes a discussion where, okay, who is actually the person who's mixed and who is actually the person who is white, who is the one who's actually black? How do we know that these are definite, distinctive groups that should be measured? So that would be the question. But I want to look at, let's say, one of the last slides. I think the one after this. So I think there's another slide after estimating the size of the multiracial population. There should be one more. Hey, Alsho, how are you? How's everything going? I'm enjoying your videos. I'm watching. I haven't been on YouTube as much for obvious reasons, but I'm enjoying your videos. So this was how Pew Research defined it, and it said the first way to count someone as multiracial is if they select two or more races for themselves. If they select if they do not select two or more races for themselves, but report that at least one of their biological parents was not the same race as them, or select two or more races for at least one of their parents. Now, this was kind of weird. One of their biological parents is not the same race as them. That statement right there sounds weird. So if they have a parent that is white and a parent that's black, which parent isn't the same race as them? I guess they're talking about the white parent. I guess they're saying that the white parent is a different race than their biracial child's. This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about with in terms of language where they already have made a decision as to what people are, but this is just, almost to make it look like we're doing something about this specific issue. So if they do not fit the definition of multiracial based on their own or their parents' racial background, but indicate that at least one of their grandparents was not the same race as themselves or their parents, or select two or more races for at least one of their grandparents. So this is confusing. So your grandparent can be two or more races, and that would make you multiracial. So you would be 85%. Okay. You'd be 85% of another race, basically. So if you have two, you have a black parent, and your other parent is 75%, you'd be multiracial. This is what they're saying. That would make every single African American person multiracial. That's another thing. There's a way where, it's like if I move, you move. You know what I mean? If I move, you move. If you change name, I change name. Like where you go, I go. Like it's that type of scenario where no matter what the person does, who's mixed or who's black, no matter how they try to make a separation or division, you always have this dynamic where somehow people make it so that, okay, well, if they want, they can come with you. Okay, that's all well and good. No one is trying to escape or get away from anything. However, what would be the point of making a distinction in the first place if you were just going to reopen it back up so that everybody could be a part of the group? Um, they're dividing the group for a reason, which is that there are just many, many, many distinctive differences between the two groups. One group is primarily black, the other group is significantly mixed. And we're talking about significant, not to some extent or a little bit or somewhat. We're talking about significantly. So that's when we're trying to distinguish, you know, what exactly are they defining as multiracial. But I want to take a peek at if there are any more if there are any more slides. I just want to take a peek at the last one. And this is probably the most important one. Do multiracial adults feel a common bond with other multiracial adults? If anyone in the chat would like to answer, do you feel a bond with people who are other mixes? Me personally, a little bit. I mean, I feel a bond with everybody. So, do I feel like they're the same group as me? No, I don't. So I would select nothing at all. Do I feel a bond with every human being? Sure. Feel a bond with everybody. We're all human. So that's how I would answer this question. Not at all. If you're not the same mix as me, then what are we talking about? You're European and black, that person's European and black, that's the same mix. If they are Asian and black, Asian and white, is it the same mix? Maybe a bit different. Interesting, but different. Asian and black probably more alignment, more interest there, Yeah, Asian and black, that's kind of cool. Asian and white, maybe a little bit more different, maybe a little bit more concern. Like, will we have anything in common? Can they understand me? Will they align with me on anything? And you have to like, okay, so you're looking at black white relationships. So look at the relationship between black and white people. Look at the relationship between black and Asian people. Now you have white and Asian paired together versus black and white. Could that be like an issue? I don't know. To say that they're both in the same group now, that could be questionable. Somebody said, I don't feel a bond with someone who's part Asian and part white. I agree. I don't feel a bond. I don't feel a bond. So, it is what it is. But yeah, I believe those are all the slides. And we can take the slides down now. Yeah, we can take the slides down. And I just want to talk for a minute or two. Um, so yeah, pretty much I was looking at multiracial categorization. I feel like it's a step in the right direction, personally. I believe it's a step in the right direction for us as mixed race people, but I also feel that it's kind of a little bit of erasure of all of the different groups by putting us all together. Um, and someone says it depends on the person. If they see themselves as monoracial, we don't have a bond. But if they see themselves as multiracial, we have a bond. Yeah, but the thing is like, what it like I you know when I look at the word multiracial, I just feel like it's kind of just a meaningless word. And a lot of these words are just meaningless. And I think that's why people have such an issue with them. Hey, just chilling. How you doing tonight? Yeah, that's why people have such an issue and they're looking for a specific word. They're looking at mulatto. Um, some people prefer only biracial. You know, they feel like there's just too much uh, where people can just join in. If you say mix, then there will be many people. Well, we're all mixed. I'm mixed too. Everybody's mixed. If you say um, multiracial, oh, we're all multiracial. Everybody's multiracial. I've mixed over in Europe. I'm Romanian and Swedish. You know, um, Russian and Ugandan. It can just be any mix, and then it's just a part of the group. So it becomes a question of what exactly are we talking about, and does there need to be any kind of distinction within the multiracial category? And if you notice, I did keep it pretty um, objective tonight. I kept it on topic. That's how I want to keep this channel. If anyone has any concerns, they can let me know privately. But I'm going to drop a link in the chat. If anybody would like to come up, they're welcome to come up. My question to you would be, do you feel um, like you what are your opinions on the term multiracial as a broad category? So I'm going to just drop a link in the chat, and if anyone would like to come up, they're welcome to. Somehow I am unable to figure out. Right. So I put the link in the chat in case anybody would like to join the stream. Um, and is there another way to put a link in the chat, like through the Discord app? That's the wrong link. I'm trying to erase it too, and I can't. Oh, let me see something. Um, so so I put a link in the chat in case anybody wants to come up on the panel. I'll talk for a few. We can talk for a few about it, but other than that, I may close out the stream. But yes, I agree. Cameron Diaz is a good example of someone who is, you know, perhaps mixed, but looks just white and most likely is just considered white. So, and that's the whole thing. Like, are you making a category for white people Are you making a category for white people who don't want to say they're white? You know what I mean? Like they have 5%, 10%, 20%. Um, it's understandable if they're 50% of one group, 50% of another. There is a strong connection to both communities often because you don't know anyone's home life, but usually there's a strong connection to both communities. But I mean, just looking at people and some people saying, well, actually, I am mixed, um, it just becomes a question for me. Who did they create the multiracial category for? The quote unquote mulatto category was stifled for a significant amount of history. A significant amount of history it was stifled for. It was stifled since the 30s, 1940, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, all the way to 2000. It was stifled for at least 70 years. By the time they come up with a new category, it is including a variety of different groups. And those groups, upon viewing them, are visibly white. So, who is the category for? Is the question. And then in the discussion about multiracial Americans, they are claiming that an overwhelming majority of people who are mixed with black simply claim black. But yet you're hearing all these people say, well, I'm biracial, or I'm proudly biracial, or I'd like to claim biracial. I'd like to claim mulatto. I would like to claim both sides of my ancestry, and they're not being given the opportunity. And then you also have people who are making it so that, claiming any type of mixed heritage. There was a discussion today claiming any type of mixed heritage is going to be all about anti-blackness or thinking you're better than black people. So somehow claiming both sides of your ethnicity is going to be positioned as some type of act to hurt black people. This is about hurting black people. When in reality, you're embracing both sides of your heritage, you're acknowledging your ethnicity. I mean, these conversations can be had all day, and you will still have people who will say, oh, well, this is all about um, anti blackness, or, somehow make it something where you're trying to escape or get away from something instead of acknowledging that you are indeed uh, a different type of person just because of that mix. But I'm going to close it out here. So it was nice having you all on the stream. It says they don't really need the multiracial category very often. Um, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense, the multiracial category. Um, I think it should be mulatto, of course. I think if they want to add separate categories, they can. Um, the significance of creating a category for people who are white and Asian is a little bit concerning. The Asian category in itself opens up a lot of questions. The black category, at least you can say it's a little bit more consistent. You've got like your West Africans, um, you got your West Africans, Central Africans, you've got your Black Americans, you've got your, Black Caribbeans. I guess you would have also, some Black people possibly from Central or South America, even though many would choose Latino. Look at the Asian category. I mean, you've got Chinese, Japanese, and Korean mixed in with Burmese, Thai, Cambodian, which are darker Asian groups, Malaysians. I think even Australian Aborigines are included in that group. You got like people from Samoa and Guam who are, Pacific Islanders. You've got Hawaiians included in that group. You've got a lot of different people with a vast range of phenotypes in the Asian category. So for the Asian category, when someone of that category mixes with another race, is it significant to say that, oh, they're also a mixed race person? Because when you're mixing black with white, you're mixing polar opposites, and that's why you're developing a specific race. But if you're mixing something that is two kind of like medium groups, is that the same thing? Like, it just seems like not a lot of thought was put into this, and emphasis was placed on person, instead of people who had a category removed from the census. So, I mean, I think those are the questions that are opened up when I read this particular article multiple times. But I'm going to end it here. It was nice to have everyone on the show. I'm closing out the stream. Thank you all for coming and have a good evening.